mistakes I've made in my art commission business journey and what I would do if I was actually starting from scratch now to avoid those mistakes. So hopefully telling you these will make you have a little bit of a head start because you know what to avoid. So number one is charging too little for my work. This has always been a problem of mine because I've got a very harsh inner critic, and I know a lot of other people do as well, especially artists. We're massive perfectionists a lot of the time. I've always just been quite uncomfortable just pricing my work as in a way that I actually deserve to be paid for the amount of time I put into things. I've been working on that a lot recently. I'm finally at a point now where I'm really happy with what I'm charging, but it has taken time. I really wish I doubled my prices sooner because there's always going to be people that will pay it. So charging too little was the first mistake I made, so I felt overworked and underpaid a lot of the time. And it actually made me lose my love for drawing at some points because I just felt like I was putting so much work into something that I was barely getting minimum wage for. Make sure you're charging what you're worth sooner rather than later. I see a lot of artists in this community, the pet portrait especially, trying to justify their prices on their website. Oh, I can't remember whose I was on the other day, I wouldn't name and shame anyway, but they were charging like hardly anything anyway, and they were also saying, I spend this many hours on it, so this is like what I'm getting an hour. Really trying to justify the price on their website, and you don't need to do that. What other industry do you know that really has to justify their prices to you? There's not. So we really need to work on our self-worth and charge enough for what we're doing basically. You don't need to justify your prices to anyone. If that person thinks they're too expensive, they're not going to pay, and you'll find another customer that's more than willing to pay. There's always an audience for what you're going to be charging. And to be honest, I find at the higher price points you end up dealing with a lot more serious customers and more pleasant customers in my experience. So yeah, make sure you're charging what you're worth, double your prices if you need to. You will find that audience of people who will pay. I think if we come from a background of having to be really careful with money, which is probably a lot of us, we can put our own monetary choices onto other people. Don't make choices about money for other people. Just charge what you're worth, give yourself a good hourly rate, and make sure you're factoring in all of the materials and all of the experience you've gained from years down the line. And also, the more of us that charge what we're worth, the more that stereotype of what we should be paying artists will diminish, and our worth will go up and up as a whole. So we're doing a good favour to the whole of the artist world when we charge what we're worth. So the second mistake I've made a few times, well, that I have been making, is giving customers too much of our energy before they've committed to buying or before they have paid their deposit to enter into that contract with us. I actually wait now to make the mock-ups, so when customers send me their pictures, I will make mock-ups in Photoshop to see what kind of background they want and stuff like that, and then I'll send it to them to confirm or change or whatever before I start the drawing. I used to do that before they paid the deposit, but I realised I was wasting so much time with people who were just time wasters basically. So now I wait until they've paid the deposit before I do any work, but I do get them to send me their pictures first so I can confirm it, and then I will ask for the deposit. But I won't do any work before that because you end up just wasting your time with people who never reply, and our time is very precious. My third mistake, was this 3? Yeah, I think it's 3. Third mistake was not automating the process. So I used to have a very long-winded process of booking. I would have to go back and forth in the messages and find their address and like all of their options and stuff, tell them all the prices. The best thing I ever did was making a booking form on my website and just sending everyone there, and it has all of the options that they can pick on a booking form, and then I get an email and that says all of their options and their address and all of that stuff. That made life so much easier and quicker. Another mistake I made was not separating my finances. So I now have a business account. I used to just get paid everything into my current account, and all of the money would be mixed up and I wouldn't know like what I was getting every month. So I made a separate business account with Monzo. Monzo are really good. They're like an online business account. They do personal accounts as well, but I've got a business account with them. And all of my payments now go into there, and then I pay myself monthly, just like an employer would. And all of my business expenses, so paper costs, art costs, all of that stuff, come out of my business account rather than my personal account. And it just really helps when it comes to accounting as well. And that brings me on to my next point. Another mistake I made was to not take record of like what I was getting and what I was paying out, so expenses and payments. It made everything really difficult when it came to doing taxes. So just do a very rough written diary of what you're getting in each month and what you're paying out. Or you can buy like an online accountancy thing, which I've never done, but just having that record is going to really help out when it comes to doing your taxes. Another mistake I made was to not give myself a good space in the house for creating and running my business. So I used to just work off the dining room table. Here was me doing that. And it was the same space that everyone else in my house used to like eat dinner, do other stuff, and it never felt like mine. So I ended up buying an art table and putting it in the corner of a room, and that was my corner, and I just had that little space that I could leave everything out and I could just come back to it when I wanted, and it just felt like I was giving myself the space I needed to create, basically. It's actually just as much of a mental thing as it is a physical space thing, because you're giving yourself that kind of space to create, both mentally and physically, with having just a little portion of the house to yourself and your business. And that's kind of carving out some mental space as well to give to your business. Give yourself some space and don't let anyone else near it, if possible. So another mistake I made, which I think a lot of us can probably relate to, is always comparing myself to people that are better than me, or I think are better than me, or just like realism artists on Instagram and stuff. It's a really bad thing to do, because nothing you ever do will be good enough for you if you just compare yourself to other people. Solution to this is just to compare yourself to your previous drawing. So every time I sit down to start drawing, I say to myself, this is going to be the best drawing that I've ever done. And that makes me compare to the last one, the last 3, whatever. And you'll just keep getting better that way, rather than bringing yourself down, comparing yourself to people who have years and years more experience than you or whatever. But yeah, you can only use yourself as a competitor. So that's going to wrap it up for this video, guys. I hope you can learn from some of my mistakes and make sure you avoid them, and yeah, just get these things sorted early on and not suffer for too long. Have a great rest of your day, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.